welcome back. It's time for us to get into a conversation on our health segment. Don't forget that the show is interactive and we do like to hear from you. So if you're watching us on our streams, kindly use the hashtag Breakfast Daily for us to hear what you're thinking. The WhatsApp line is 0550-585832. Now, today on the health segment, Dr. Kelvin Owusu, who is the head of occupational health and wellness at Clarion Health International, has joined us on the show. And I just have one question for him. Why on earth would anybody need an emergency contraceptive?
That's your only question?
That's my only question.
Your only question?
That's my only question.
Well, we are talking about emergency contraception this morning. And, well, I'm not going to answer Dr. Kelvin.
Emergency, the other.
Dr. Kelvin.
Good
morning.
Good morning. How are you doing?
I'm well, thank you. I was well until this gentleman just threw this spoke in my wheel, you know. Wait, what?
I don't understand.
But emergency contraception.
Yes.
I think before we even get into the conversation, you hit the streets. You did a vox pop, picked some people's minds on it.
Very interesting experience.
So let's take a look at that vox pop. Dr. Kelvin just interacted with Ghanaians, people of the Ghanaian public on the streets, and this is what they had to say about emergency contraception.
Oh, family planning. I can't family planning. What you saying? Every day,
Every new saying.
And your friend emergency contraception. What's it? What's them da? Then what you for?
Say, ebia, wako bema ho na ebia, pesa obenyi munti na ne wako fa wako to say do na bo ho ban say na be ya woni.
Na there how many times now about me for emergency contraceptive?
Me pa cha de minim.
Now one cause for how many times?
Me de men time fa mom.
Hey, how many times?
Me once be pen na mafa.
Once be pay. Okay, Pacho, you make that. Now, we catch on now for someone for your family planning, some your family planning.
And there will be a choice, and they mean to mention more, but me the America says, oh, person or Benny abstaining from sex no more.
I'm planning my baby. Me want me second born me, Rako Mekasa. Me want me second born me yebi. Me yeah no. And I'm a giant. I'm 2 years. Me nyame and I'm away. The third born I'm saying yebi. Me yeah na. Man to me anyim bim to my ngubium. That is I am 1 year. Me da me hu say nye. Afen so yeah so do baby a period no. I am mayi. Nti me hu say nye.
Ana ka person won kola say.
Na me 4. Nso say na ma wo. Me nyim bia na say. Nti me hu say nye.
Yeah, I know there's a pill to take after sexual intercourse, like the day after or so. Yes, but I don't know much.
But you know people who have taken some before, and what was their experience?
Okay, I haven't really had that conversation with many people, so no. No, I'm sorry.
But do you think family planning is something that you would do in the future?
Yeah. I mean, for unplanned pregnancies, yes, to also know how to space out your children when you're married with a family, so you know how to manage your finances to raise your children and everything, yeah.
How about the emergency contraception?
You having sex unknowingly and taking pills after sex.
How long after sex should you take the emergency pill?
I think it's 3 days, so you can take it maybe after sex or 2 days.
So how often can a woman take the emergency pill?
Anytime you have sex, to avoid you from getting pregnant, you can take it.
So we can unknowingly have intercourse.
I have no idea how you unknowingly have sex.
I learned something new today, which I didn't know. And I wish I could unknow it. Dr. Calvin, that was interesting. It's always interesting seeing how, because a lot of the time we're sensitizing people, we're having conversations, but you're not really sure how deeply the information is penetrating down into the public, you know. So it's always interesting to see how people think and what they know. I must say that it looks like generally, I don't know what you think, but generally people have an idea, you know, now more than before about family planning and specifically emergency contraception.
I mean, yeah, I think the acceptance is definitely on the increase, which is a good thing. But there's still some information missing. I mean, you realize some of the information that was being given. If the camera was on me, you realize that
you're holding yourself back. You're reminding yourself that also a consulting
I know,
room.
right? Because yes, a lot of misinformation out there. You know, because quite a lot of people are not getting the information from the right source. You know, social media, some of the stations, some unqualified people are out there spewing all sorts of nonsense. You know, so it makes the job even more difficult. You see, I mean, somebody was out there advising that family planning, it doesn't work. You know, and there's evidence that it actually works. You know, the big challenge is that people, because they're not going to the right source for the information, they are not using the right method for themselves. You know, and so it makes the failure rate a bit higher, or the complications a bit more for that person. That's why the advice is always to go to the right person, the right source. And thankfully, most of the government facilities have family planning units, you know, where qualified people are there to assist you. And the good thing is that there's no judgment. So whether you are 10 years old, you know, you are 50 years old, so long as you are sexually active and you want some counseling, there are people there who are not going to judge you, who are going to give you the advice that you need that can make a difference in your life, you know, because it is a big challenge. Children are very expensive.
Oh yes, they are.
They can change your life. I mean, I'm telling you.
We all agree. But Dr. Calvin, I mean, so we've spoken here, right here on this show, on this set even, several times about contraception in general, you know, and birth control, as some people would call it. And we can revisit those conversations on a broader scale later, because you can never talk about it enough. You always miss out on something and you want to put more information out there. But let's focus on emergency contraception. What is it? Let's start from the beginning. Let's answer David's question. What is emergency contraception?
You know, as the lady said, when you unknowingly engage in a sexual act, I mean, unplanned sexual act, maybe you met your partner, or you met a random person, and then one thing led to another, and then you just had sex, you know, but you are not really ready for the consequences of having sex, because sex comes with its own complications, especially if you don't know what times you are in. You know, then the emergency pill, emergency contraception, is a method, or there are methods available to prevent pregnancy from occurring. Now, we must differentiate this from abortion. You know, emergency pills do not cause abortion because they act before implantation. You see, when we speak from a medical perspective, pregnancy is only established when there has been implantation. So it's not fertilization. This is actually where there's a lot of controversy between medicine and the religious people, because religious people believe that once there's fertilization, that's pregnancy. But medically speaking, fertilization is not pregnancy. You know, it's implantation that is pregnancy. So the emergency contraception or the emergency methods either delay ovulation, you know, so they prevent the egg from being released in the first place, you know, or they may prevent fertilization, or if it is too late to prevent fertilization, then they prevent implantation. You know, so those are the stages where they intervene. Abortion pills or abortion interventions will terminate a pregnancy that has established. In other words, if implantation has occurred, then those ones go in. So the emergency pill is not an abortion method at all. You know, so that's basically what an emergency pill is. But the emphasis is that it's an emergency pill, which means it's not a regular.
Your modus operandi.
It cannot be your modus operandi. It cannot be your you cannot take emergency pill like Achumo. I mean, that's actually one of my favorite lines on social media. You cannot take emergency pill like you are drinking Coca-Cola at a party. No. You know, it is meant for emergencies. Let's say you're on the regular contraceptive, but that day you forgot to take your pill. But then action has happened. Then you can take the emergency pill. Or maybe you have been sexually abused, you know, you have been raped. You can take the emergency pill, you know, or there's a failed contraception. Let's say you're using a condom, and then after the act, you realize that the condom has split open somewhere. You can take the emergency pill, but you cannot take the emergency pill every day. You know, if you have cause to take the emergency pill more than once in a year, it means that you need to be on a regular contraception. You know, this is very, very important.
More than once in a year.
Yes, emphasis on in a year. So if you have taken it more than once in a year, you really need to be on a proper contraception, you know, not the emergency pill, because that cannot be your go-to.
So what are some of the implications of taking the emergency pill more often than you are supposed to. You know, what can happen to your body? I mean, are there medical implications? Are there social implications? Let's talk about some of these things.
Okay, so I mean, so let's start with the side effects of the emergency pill. You know, when you take the emergency pill, remember that or let's say the emergency pill is high dose. So generally, there are two types of emergency contraception. There's the mechanical, which is the IUD. So the IUD can actually be used as an emergency contraception, and then there's the pharmacological, which is the pill. The pill is more common because you literally just go to the pharmacy and you grab it. So most people know about the pill.
Okay, so let's talk about the mechanical, the IUD. How does that work as emergency contraception?
Okay, so remember I mentioned that there are 3 stages of intervention. So it either prevents ovulation, prevents fertilization, or prevents implantation. So the IUD works on the third level. It prevents implantation by making the womb inhospitable. Is it in or unhospitable? One of them. Inhospitable to implantation. So that's where the IUD comes in. So if you insert IUD within 5 days after unprotected sex, it will actually prevent pregnancy from establishing. Okay. So the IUD can serve as an emergency contraception. And the advantage there is that once the IUD is put there, you can actually leave it there for 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, depending on which type you've put there. So then that can now become your regular. You know, so that's the big advantage of the IUD over the pill. You know, the pill works today, and then it has done its job already, and then that's it. You see, but the pill is a high dose hormones, which, as I keep saying, it shocks the system. You know, it literally is like you see an electric socket, then you decide that I'm going to stand in water and test the limits. You know, so you put your finger in it gives you a shock. That's what it does to your whole body. You know, so it disrupts a lot of things. So women who take the emergency pill can experience nausea, vomiting. You know, they can actually go through a breast tenderness. Some people will get headaches. You know, some people get general weakness, general malaise. You know, some people would have some bleeding episodes. You know, so it can cause a lot of disruption. Now, because of the hormonal reset, it can, one of the, you asked about the complications. It can actually disrupt your what's it called, your menstrual cycle. You know, so whereas let's say your cycle was a regular 30-day cycle, now it can actually be disrupted such that it can actually change, become 35 days or become 25 days. You know, so it can actually upset your record. So assuming you know that I'm always expecting my period on, let's say, a certain day, and based on this day, you've calculated when your safe period is, so you know when you can engage with your partner. Now that disruption has affected those days, so it means that subsequently you're going to do it, and then you are in trouble. So now you're going to go back and take the emergency pill and cause another disruption. You know, so it's one of those things. Now, when you read the literature from the manufacturers, from WHO, from whoever, they will tell you that it doesn't have any long-term effect. But then they also tell you that, but do not take this as a regular contraceptive method. Now, whenever you have such
contradictory or paradoxical.
Exactly. It tells you that we don't know the long-term effect because we haven't had it that long enough to draw those conclusions. And so every time you are taking it, understand that you are putting yourself at risk of something that we may not know. You know, and that is why, you know, you should lean more towards the one that we know. The regular pills or the regular contraception methods have been known for donkey years, so we know how it affects the body. You know, if you have cause to take the emergency pill, by all means take it. Don't say that because we've talked about it, you're not going to take it. Take it. If you've had unprotected sex for one reason or another, or you are forced to have sex and then you don't want the complications, by all means take it. But you need to put yourself in a position not to take it again by going on a regular contraceptive method. It's very, very important. You know, family planning cannot be overemphasized because as a woman, you need there's a recovery period after every pregnancy. I mean, we pegged it at a minimum of 2 years. If you can hold off for 2 years minimum, you should. But they actually stretch it with 3. Some are even suggesting 4 or 5. You know, point is the longer.
So those of us who are 2 under 2 months.
You know, but the longer you're able to delay pregnancy, or the longer the interval between pregnancies, it helps the woman to recover. And so if you've had one pregnancy, it's always advisable that you talk to your obstetrician or your family, what they call your midwife, so that you see what options are available to you. Note, options available to you, because it's not a one-size-fits-all. You see, people, for instance, typically people who have a history of migraine, first of all, you shouldn't even be taking the emergency contraceptive because it can trigger migraines to a certain level. Even the regular combined pill, the ones that have the estrogen in there, are not conducive for people with a history of migraine. So if you go and take the emergency pill, which is about quadruple the the concentration of hormones, you see how risky it is. So you really need to be engaging with your health practitioner to get the right method for you, so that don't put yourself in a situation like that. And honestly, the IUD option is very, very, very effective. You know, so if you think you cannot handle, or you are not too sure whether it can prevent unplanned sexual encounters, then the IUD is a very, very, very viable option for all women. You know, unfortunately, we don't have a pill for men yet, so let's not.
There was some conversation about that a couple of years ago.
Yes, but it's still not fully developed, so it's still in the experimental stages. So for now,
I mean, off the back of that, I also think that it's important for people to remember that if the fact that you're using an emergency contraceptive method doesn't mean you're preventing disease.
Right.
So you're only preventing pregnancy.
Right. Because we've just come off of, World AIDS Day was on the 1st of December. November was
and
was
interestingly,
World
the HIV rate is actually, I mean, during the COVID and post-COVID, the rate has actually been going up, because it looks like people thought we were going to die, so they threw all caution to the wind.
So let's just move. Let's just have fun.
Condom is actually the only contraceptive method that protects against infection. So if you want to prevent infection, then condom is your go-to. None of the other contraceptives prevent infection. They only protect you from pregnancy. So condom is a very good option for everybody. Now there's male and female condoms. So the man will not wear it, the woman should wear it. Otherwise, no game.
That's all. If I'm not wearing my football boots, I'm not playing the match. And I mean, that's an important distinction to make. So it means that, I mean, no matter what kind of contraception you're taking, be it long-term or emergency or whatever it is, you also need to have a stash of condoms.
Oh, yes.
Especially if you are not with a regular partner whom you know is clean, quote unquote, void of, I mean, HIV/AIDS is one thing, but then you have all the other STIs.
Yeah.
You need to be carrying condoms around.
You should. I mean, and the thing about what do you call it, infection, is that if you might be faithful to your partner, but is your partner faithful to you? So there's that ABC. The B says be faithful to a faithful partner. If you cannot guarantee that your partner is faithful, then make sure that partner is wearing a condom. I mean, if it's a male, or if that one is not wearing, then you have to wear your condom, because you can never know. And the thing about HIV is that there's a refractory period where there's really no symptoms. So you cannot look at my face and say this one there he's clean. You see, and even when somebody has tested negative for HIV, you need to repeat that test in 6 months to be sure, because it takes that long for the virus to show up in the test. Right. So the fact that the person is negative today does not mean that he or she is negative. It just means that the test
did not showing up.
Exactly. So you can only be sure if there has been a repeat 6 months later. You see, and so if you are not sure, condom is your best bet. But if you are sure, then make sure that if you are not ready for pregnancy, you are taking some other precaution to delay pregnancy. Calendar method does not work. It does not work, please. It does not work, because and the women will confirm, even in the same woman, my cycle is 30 days, but month to month there's a variability. So today, this month was 30 days, last month was probably 28, the next month is probably 32, which means that you're calculating your safe period to be a particular time. It's always shifting back and forth, so you could easily miss it. The failure rate of calendar method is about 80%.
Yeah, and apart from that, now we're dealing with heightened stresses, just the way we work, the way we live, the food we eat. It's a very fast life. That alone, I mean, sometimes you can be stressed. That's a woman, you're stressed, and then your period comes.
Exactly.
Meanwhile, you had it 2 weeks ago.
Exactly.
So it's calendar method there can mess you up. It's not.
It will mess you up. It's not the fact that it hasn't messed you up yet doesn't mean that It just means that God hasn't had time for you yet.
Even though it's still important to God hasn't had time for you. Even though it's still important to track.
It is.
Yes.
No, it's important to track, because I mean, when you come to me as a doctor with any reproductive related problem, the first question I'm going to ask you is, when was your last period, what's your cycle? That gives an idea what stage we are in and what intervention we can do. If you don't know your cycle, then it delays intervention, because we need to then wait and see if we can track it a little bit before we know what we are doing. So most of the time, you tell you that, okay, when you have your period, then come back. You see, that means you're going to come back and pay consultation fee again. Now, at times are hard. So if you are coming prepared, know your cycle, so that we pay once and then we move. That's what the payment you have to pay, because but
doctors have to eat too. too.
But let me help you help yourself, you know, because if you know your cycle and you know all these details, we don't have to delay and book another appointment. We can actually do everything there and then, you know. So knowing your cycle is very important.
Wow.
I think that the advice has been given.
Well given, properly given.
Yeah. My favorite.
A word to the wise is enough.
Is the condom.
Yeah, that's your favorite?
Just use it.
Yeah.
Oh, but then it's not an emergency
Yes.
because that thing has happened already.
Yesterday.
And let me just chip this in. So some people have this perception that if there's no penetration, there cannot be pregnancy. It's not true. It's not true.
Preach, oh. Tell them.
If the semen falls anywhere around the vulva, you see,
there's a possibility.
There's a possibility that you see, sperm is very smart. I mean, all of us are here. We are smart people. Sperm is also very smart. The sperm can actually swim in there and enter where it's not supposed to enter. So once you are playing that area and there's semen around that area, you know, if you don't want pregnancy, then take the emergency pill. So that's one instance where you can take it. But if you're already taking precautions where you're on the pill or some other contraception, then you are fine, you see. So prepare before you go into the game. You know.
Yes.
Be prepared.
Be prepared. Do all your training. Do all your training, wear the right gear, and go and play the game. And hopefully you win.
You have to define the win, though, because the win can...
No. Hopefully you win. Dr. Calvin, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you too.
We've been speaking to Dr. Calvin Owusu. He's the head of occupational health and wellness at the Client Health Center, and we've been speaking about emergency contraception and other matters related. Let's go for a break, and when we come back, we talk entertainment.